Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the virtual CISO moment. Warner Moore joins us today. He is the founder of Gamma Force. Warner, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Greg. I feel like I'm hanging out with Wayne and Garth right now with your intro there.
I was going to say like excellent, but no, that's Bill and Ted. What was their? Oh man, I'm drawing a blank, and I should know that from Wayne's World. Swing. That was one, wasn't
Yeah, yeah.
it? Well, now you got me totally derailed. I could talk 80s movies now for the entire rest of the time. But would like to hear about your career path, how and why you got involved with cybersecurity, information security, and then everything up to founding Gamma Force, which I guess has been now 20 years, and what led you to do that and what you're doing today.
Yeah, I really started my career in the early days of the internet. Uh, Late 90s, open source started to really drive a lot of innovation. So, internet service providers. And back then, we didn't have much for security. So it was one of those things we got pretty nerdy about. And it was more academic fun for me. It was a challenging tech problem. And since then, security was really just a meaningful part of my career. As I focused my career working with business to business software as a service companies, back in the olden days, we called them .com companies. And I built my first security program, for a fintech company right as PCI data security standard was coming out.
Mm.
And as far as Gamma Force, I'd help build a few B2B SaaS companies across industries, fintech, insurtech, health tech. Helping build Cover My Meds was a fun ride. We went from about 20, 30 folks to 500 in less than 4 years and built the security and privacy program there, as well as a lot of the tech team, security operations, GRC, and some of the technical team.
Mhm.
And really, after the third SaaS company I helped build, it was time to switch things up. I didn't see, I wanted to do more pure tech or security play,
Mhm.
and the opportunities weren't clear. There wasn't an obvious thing to build that was underserved, where we had an unusual opportunity, a competitive advantage. So I'm like, okay, who do I want to hang out with? And that's what I started doing when we founded Gamma Force. Built a great team, have great clients, and no looking back. Gamma Force turned 6 this past July.
Oh, turn six. I thought you've been doing it since earlier than that, or?
Yeah, I had somebody help with my LinkedIn profile, and I need to get back to it and tweak it. I During my entire career, I've been consulting.
Uh-huh.
Well, the bulk of it anyway, and it was really just fun projects or cool companies, stuff that I was passionate about on the side.
Hmm.
So my experience as a consultant spans 20 years, but the company is 6 years old. I have to
And
go below the fold to see that.
and you I'm reading from your LinkedIn. You help organizations with their tech and information security strategies by serving in advisory board or executive roles as CISO or CTO. What does a typical client look like?
Well, in a lot of ways, they're small to mid-sized businesses.
Mhm.
I don't normally think of it that way. It's interesting in tech how really a large company can have less headcount. So it depends what you're looking at. Bunch of revenue, bunch of big team. It can look really different. But it tends to be young, scrappy companies. So we infrequently I work with our clients, and we act as it would be if the company hired a full-time CISO, and we have an expert team in key areas to help with that. So we really act as our client security organization.
Now, I have to ask, as I was looking also through your LinkedIn beforehand, that I noticed that you have extensive experience with Toastmasters, and I frequently will tell people, not only on the podcast but just on LinkedIn, and if you happen to ask me at a conference or anything like that, about like what's a really great certification to get. Usually, they expect me to come back with a CISSP or something similar, and I'm like, actually the best ones that I've gotten, or at least up there, had nothing to do with security. And they're like, well, what? And I said, no, it's Toastmasters, which for those who aren't interested or familiar rather with it, is the International Speaking Association. I don't remember the exact tagline, but basically they through Toastmasters you learn not only how to speak better and hopefully get rid of your ahs and ohs, but for me, the reason why it was so great is because it helped me how to listen better and how to be more concise. Although you probably couldn't tell with this soliloquy right now. How has Toastmasters benefited you in your career?
Well, shoot, I like to say I've been working on communication skills well over 10 years, and that's certainly true. And Toastmasters has been a big part of that. Nonprofit organization, international, and it's low cost,
Right.
so anyone can join really. And the entire program is about helping you develop stronger communication skills. Filler words like Greg shared. My distinguished Toastmaster, the plaque on the wall there, which frequently doesn't come up, I joke. In part, it's half a joke that it's like a postgraduate degree. I took 7 years to get that DTM, so longer than a lot of people work on up to getting a master's degree.
Yeah. And that was something that I had aspired to, but quite honestly, I never stayed in Toastmasters long enough. I keep on saying I want to go back, but it's like it doesn't cost much money, but it does cost a lot of time sometimes to do all that. So um, let me get us back on track. You've mentioned that you work with a lot of companies that you described as maybe scrappy type companies, smaller companies. Sometimes it depends upon how you measure it, but when I think scrappy companies, I think like startups sometimes. I think folks that are just like really passionate about what they're doing. They're trying to build a product. But sometimes when you're in that sort of an element, you can introduce some information security risks. And from your perspective and from your consulting today, what would you say are one or maybe even a couple? Because I never like to limit people to just one of the most significant information security and or cybersecurity risks to small and mid-sized businesses.
Yeah, we do a ton of work with health tech, and the reason for that is there's a reason to invest in security. Often the companies are working with protected health information. There's HIPAA compliance requirements. They're frequently doing business with other businesses in the healthcare industry. So
Mhm.
the market, their customers, expect them to have security capabilities. With some young tech companies, I frequently discourage them from investing in security because it's a lot. Now, every company should at scale because the risk gets higher. If you're a $10 million revenue company and you have a breach, well, the cost of that breach could be up to the $10 million in revenue. It depends, but you could say that companies worth anywhere from 30 to 100 million. And so if that company no longer exists, you have that built-in risk there, and it gets a
Mhm.
lot more nuanced from there. Now, a startup tech company that isn't working with high value or regulated data, well, they often should be focused on getting customers, getting product market fit. Now,
Mhm.
stepping back from all that, though, I'd say that every company, every person should do basic stuff. We call it basic now, but it didn't used to be basic. It's really easy to do multi-factor authentication. So if
Right.
somebody steals your password, they don't get access to your accounts and data. It's really easy to implement encryption and use it consistently. That wasn't always the case.
Right.
It's really easy to use a password database. So you're using secure passwords and storing them in a way that they're not easily stolen. So there are a lot of easy things like that that are high impact that every small business should do.
I know I was when you were talking about multi-factor, what came to mind was a lot of what we do with multi-factor. Of course, it's wonderful. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my phone out. I should have done this when I was off camera. We have it come to our phone, and we still have some folks, some businesses that will do SMS, which kind of irks me because, and particularly even in the banking world, you can do it. But I just want your opinion on this because I was just thinking about this while you were talking. Um, how effective is locking your SIM, locking your number so that somebody else can't transfer it in mitigating the risk of using SMS as a multi-factor method? Just your
Well,
opinion.
I'll go in a bit of a circle and come to point. Text messaging for that purpose isn't a SMS OTP, one-time password, isn't MFA. Now, if you go to the Wikipedia article on multi-factor authentication, there's a specific section for that. Uh, and if we think of MFA, it's something we know, a password, something we are, a biometric,
Hmm.
or something we have. Well, SMS OTP isn't something we have. It's just,
It's something we get.
yeah, exactly.
It's something we get on something we have, sort of, I guess.
So, to your point, essentially, cell phone cloning or stealing the number, your number, is relatively trivial to do. Um, SIM locking could help mitigate that some, but mostly I'd say that we shouldn't be using that as a meaningful security mechanism. I mean, sure, the average person, it's better than nothing. If we have a service provider that only supports that, it's better than nothing. But usually the minimum bar in my mind is to use something like Authy or a software-based authenticator for one-time passwords, and that is tied to your phone. That
Right.
is something you have, and then things from there just get better. Hardware token, very much something you have, and
It's on here somewhere. YubiKey. So, but yeah. Oh, I guess I didn't have my screen up here. I was trying to show that it's on here somewhere. There it is. Uh, well, totally derailed myself again. You're right in that if I'm not mistaken, so talking about SIM swapping and all of that, if you lose your number, the authenticator apps on the phone are actually tied to the device, not to the number, which makes that much more secure. And what I can't understand, and again, just asking for your opinion because I've kind of gotten on a little bit of a soapbox here. It happens sometimes when we start having conversations. Why do banks of all places out there? Why are banks seemingly the most restrictive or resistant, I should say, to doing this? I don't understand. Any ideas, or just because that's the way they've always done it?
the financial industry is especially resistant to change. So they're generally behind on technology.
Hmm.
On average, probably 5 to 10 years. I do business with a big bank, and their default is SMS OTP. I hesitate to even call it OTP, but SMS OTP
Hmm.
in email. And well, in the business accounts, they do support hardware-based tokens, but you have to go through a workflow where you request it, you have to pay for it. I'm not sure which one they use, but the old school hardware ones where you have a screen and
The number on it, like the old RSA tokens. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's a bank that is on in the industry on the leading edge of technology, but that's in an industry that on average is behind on technology. So it's less about security in that case and more about that company or bank's inability to respond to quickly evolving changes in technology.
Well, and it's of course talking about technology. There's still a market for COBOL programmers, and that's for the core systems out there. It's like it's probably the only place where there's still a market for them. Well, all of this kind of stresses me out somewhat. It might stress you out, might not. I don't know, but in general, our industry can be very stressful. I frequently on this podcast encourage people that they need to take care of themselves first. If you can't take if you let cyber or infosec or however you want to call it overwhelm you, then ultimately your health is going to suffer, your career is going to suffer. It's just not any good. So I encourage folks to step away and to do something to de-stress that is positive, not negative. And I've shared before on this podcast that sometimes I used to de-stress by having a few beers, and ultimately the short-term gain, long-term not so good. So what's one of the things that you do to de-stress? Now you're going to tell me you're a brewer or something like that because I just mentioned beer.
I'll tackle this from two different perspectives, one professionally and then two personally. Professionally, I think it's a curse of the profession. Many CISOs I know see threats everywhere. And I always encourage us to ground ourselves. If we're defense contractor or public sector, we probably do have all these threats everywhere. That's not true of most of our organizations. If we're building a strong security program, we have shared accountability for due care in the executive team.
Mm-hmm.
And while there's always going to be incident response and disaster recovery, things happen. And those can be stressful. But we can only do so much. Make the decisions, make the plans, build the strategy, and then work it. And when it doesn't go well, recognize that everyone's human, including our teams, and take care of them. And we'll get through it. I tend to be pretty pragmatic about it these days. And admittedly, it's hard earned through a lot of triage work I've done in my career. Personally, take care of yourself. Sleep,
Yes,
get
sleep is.
exercise,
Uh-huh.
live a full life. Work-life balance, sure. I at times in my career, I had a policy of taking a week off every quarter and a
Ah,
target of 5 weeks a year. And I encouraged my team to do the same. So, what do you need? I think there's a bad habit in technology and security professions to feel like everything's on our shoulders and we're saviors, and we're not. We're a team, we're a company, and we should be building capabilities both personally and professionally, capabilities in the company for us to effectively manage and sustain, be resilient over time.
and sometimes the stress goes beyond us even being in cyber. I don't know we can be affected by cyber stress without being in cyber as customers, or in the case of I noticed by looking in your LinkedIn profile that you're in Columbus, Ohio. And Columbus, as I understand it, is still in the middle of a recovery of some sort of cyber incident. How does that make you feel from a stress standpoint? And I have a before you answer it, I have a kind of a personal relationship with that in a way, in that one of my previous full-time positions. I was the first CISO for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, and that
Mhm.
position was created because of a breach that involved a laptop theft that had 330,000 voter records on it. Ultimately, there's a whole bunch of controls that failed, but ultimately there was no reason to have the data on the laptop. And this stressed out the city of Nashville. And this was, I mean, this is 14, 15 years ago. So I'm wondering, I mean, is there a sense of stress in the community because of what has happened with the government entity?
I think there's some frustration amongst city residents. I, I I've been talking about this in our security professional community since it happened. I know many security leaders on the state level, and on a state level, we've been investing a lot into cybersecurity.
Mhm.
On a city level, I'm having trouble finding the folks to talk to firsthand, and I'm still personally just sorting through it. Like, what does this mean uh, professionally as well? And I have to imagine the city's probably going to be hiring a lot of security people in the coming months.
Yeah.
What we can take from it, it is not a good way to run incident response. As we think about our incident response plans and our organizations, and when we go through our tabletops, do we have general counsel as part of that, or outside counsel, lawyers, attorneys? Do we have cross-functional stakeholders, the right business folks in the room? Do we have communications, public relations, marketing? Uh, do we have not only the people, but the right plan in place there?
Mhm.
So when we're talking to our customers and the public, we say the right things that are accurate at the right times, as opposed to making the problem worse by not representing it well. Certainly, we can step back and question: were the right controls in place? Did we have the right people in place to ensure that there was a security program operating effectively? I'm sure there'll be a ton of lessons learned for the city, but I think we can take lessons too. We often take our incident response processes or disaster recovery or business continuity for granted. And
Mhm.
these are the things we should think through in advance so we can respond most effectively when, not if, a breach occurs.
Yeah, and I think that that was ultimately how it played out with Nashville, in that they, and when I was there too, to help with this process, realized the importance of information security as opposed to just thinking about it as an IT issue. And I'm not saying that was the case with Columbus here, but certainly there could have been that. So as far as like future plans, having a little bit of a communication issue there. See if you come back.
I think you're back now. I didn't catch the question. Hello.
The question was about future plans. What are your future plans?
Oh, future plans. Well, one of our company values is we live life every day, and that's important. And really, where I ground myself is impact. I concentrate my time in areas that make the most impact, and I'm not it, this. I was on a panel for executive leadership coaching program, the kickoff yesterday, and we talked about stuff like this. And as a staff level person, it might sound aspirational, but once you become an executive, it's not only important to think of mission, vision, values in an organization, but for you. In fact,
Mhm.
often if you're a CEO or a founder, your mission, vision, values are the company's. So that's true on an executive level as well. The most effective executives think of things this way. What's next for a CISO? Retirement? I mean, for me, it's impact, right? I'm
Yeah.
concentrating my time in areas that make the most impact.
Well, it's interesting. What's next for a CISO? Last week had a guest on, good friend of mine, who he migrated from the security world to being now chief growth officer for a services firm that provides not only security but also they're an accounting firm and a whole bunch of other things as well too. So it's like there are many escape hatches from
Yeah.
security, I guess. Well, Warner, listen, it was a wonderful conversation, even though we had that little glitch there. But hey, that's communications, right? The internet is never completely perfect, and neither are we. But that's okay. It makes life fun. Appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on.
It was such a pleasure, Greg, and everyone for listening. I had a great time. Party on.
There you go. Party on, Wayne. Party on, Garth. And everybody, stay secure while you're partying on.